You will not believe it, but Wagner returns to Ukraine. At the same time, approximately 52,000 Russians arrived to Bakhmut. But on the good side, Klishchiivka is now fully and officially liberated, and Kadyrov failed his most recent surgery. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So, you already know that the leader of North Korea, Kim Jung Un, recently visited Russia, and one of his latest days he was meeting with the Minister of Defense of Russia, Sergei Shoigu. Yes, the very same Shoigu who is flying sometimes around my apartment like annoying mosquito. So, they met in Vladivostok, and this is exactly how I imagined this meeting was going. In the very beginning, Shoigu is like, "What's up, bro, Kim?" Oh wow, wait, the cameras are already filming, so, oh snap. "Welcome to Russia, Mr. Kim Jung Un. Should we say something? He just stands here looking at us. It is kinda awkward, right? Tick 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 tick. And this, Mr. Kim, is our submarine. Well, excuse me, sir, this is not a submarine, this is a plane." How dare he correct me in front of brother Kim? I should send him straight to Gulag in Siberia. After this, Sergei Shoigu and Kim Jung Un, they had a friendly lunch, drinking obviously vodka, and then Sergei Shoigu presented Kim Jung Un a sword for some reason, and this typical Russian hat. And while Russians and North Koreans are trying to join their armies, you, John, Derek, Matt, Steven, Mark, Tom, you're more than welcome to join the Russian Dude Army. All you need to do for this is to simply like this video and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram to see how I live outside of YouTube, the link is down below. And so, yes, now let's briefly talk about Kadyrov's failed surgery, and then I'll give you a quick update from the south and the east of Ukraine before finalizing everything with Wagner, which is back. And so yes, you must have already heard the rumors that Kadyrov right now is in critical condition, possibly is even in coma, and recently some cars, very expensive cars with Chechen license plate numbers, they were spotted next to one of the biggest and the most important hospitals in Moscow. These cars including BMWs, Mercedes, Porsches, Rolls-Royce, everything, and I mean, yeah, that's how much Russia pays for Chechnya to be its friend. And long story short, at this very moment the main assumption is that Kadyrov has extreme problems with his kidneys, and recently one of the surgeries of kidney transplant has failed. And even though the current condition of Ramzan Kadyrov is not yet officially made public, some people assume that he might have died in the hospital. So let's wait and see, and I'll monitor closely this situation. But most importantly, the Russian media is extremely concerned with the health of Ramzan Kadyrov, which only confirms huge reliability of Putin on the president of Chechnya. So it is not 100% certain if rapidly deteriorating health of Kadyrov is related to Putin's work, but once again, just let me know in the comments what do you think. But so yes, now as promised, let me give you a quick update from the south of Ukraine before moving to the east, and our first stop brings us to Sevastopol. If you remember last week, Ukrainians attacked the port in the city, destroying the Russian submarine Rostov-on-Don and Russian landing ship Minsk. And last week we already received the visual confirmation that the ship is severely damaged or even potentially destroyed, and now we have also the visual confirmation of the submarine, and as you can see right here, it is not in great condition either, but Russians still say that this is just insignificant damages. We even have the new satellite image, which shows us the completely scorched earth around these two vessels. But it does not end here, because as you can see from this video from one of the cities on Crimean Peninsula, Russians are also transporting their heavily damaged K-52 attack helicopter. And as we get closer to Kherson region, Ukrainians reportedly destroyed a Russian tank along with their assault group across Dnipro river in Dnipryany. Then we have the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that the main combat activities in the south are happening in the western Zaporozhye region. And indeed, as you can see from this map, it shows us the changes in territorial control. We can see that Ukrainians slightly expanded their liberation to the south of Robotyne. At the same time, we also have this video from the same area where Russians are trying to drive as fast as they can, escaping Ukrainians, but Ukrainian drone was able to reach them just in time. And speaking about the drones, recently Ukrainians were able to intercept 18 out of 24 Russian Shahed drones and every single one of 17 Russian missiles. Then we have another claim by the Institute for the Study of War that Russians are relocating some of their forces from the east, specifically from the area next to Klishchiivka, about which we will talk very soon, and they're relocating them to Zaporozhye, trying to stop the advancement of Ukrainians. And even the British intelligence report confirms the same information, saying that Russians in the last 2 weeks brought 2 more regiments of their paratroopers, and now the total number of so-called elite Russian soldiers VDV next to Robotyne to the south of this settlement consists of approximately 10,000 people. And just overall, since the beginning of Ukrainian counteroffensive, they were able to liberate approximately 260 square kilometers of their land in the south, and this information came to us by Anna Malyar, which recently was resigned from her position as the Deputy Minister of Defense. And so yes, now let me give you a similar brief update from the east, and first of all, once again referring to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, there are still combat activities on Kupiansk-Svatove-Kreminna front line, with Russians actively pushing next to Svatove, and as you can see in here in Novoyegorivka, Russians and Ukrainians brought closer their front lines next to this settlement. At the same time, as we get closer to Bakhmut, we can see that Ukrainians were also able to liberate some land to the northeast of Orekhovo-Vasilievka. And if you remember from the last week, Ukrainians officially and fully liberated Andriivka, located right here, and this is another video of the liberation of this settlement. But apparently, whenever Russians were retreating from this city, their comrades behind the front lines, they started once again, for some reason, doing a friendly fire and eliminating their own forces. Unfortunately, I still have to censor my videos because of YouTube guidelines, but if you want to see fully uncensored episodes and all of this uncensored extra footage and also support the channel, please make sure to check my Patreon, the link is down below, and there's still 1 week of free access. Next we go to Bakhmut itself, where combat activities are happening every single day, and in the western part, Ukrainians try to advance, obviously unfortunately suffering some injuries, but they do not leave their own soldiers behind, and they started evacuating them, unlike friendly fire by Russians. But most importantly is that Ukrainians finally were able to liberate Klishchiivka as well. As you can see from this map, it is now fully in green and in blue zone. Ukrainians even shared with us this video from fully liberated Klishchiivka, and then even President himself congratulated his soldiers with the liberation of this significant key city. And the reason why it is so significant, it is because Klishchiivka along with Andriivka are major cities right next to the roads which lead to the south of Bakhmut, which first of all disrupts the logistics of Russians to the south of this city and also will help Ukrainians in the future to advance to Bakhmut from different sides. And speaking about Bakhmut, according to General of Ukraine Alexander Syrsky, Russians are now seriously concerned, and they are also bringing reinforcements to protect the city, so they do expect a major battle near soon. And just overall, as you can see right here, this map now also confirms that Klishchiivka is fully liberated. Just a couple of last words from the east, and then we'll finally talk about Wagner. As we go to Svetlodarsk, as you can see located pretty far behind the front lines, Ukrainians were able, using smart munition JDAM, to destroy 1 Russian air defense system and multiple launch rocket system. Next we go to another major city, Donetsk, where recently a government so-called building of the infiltrators of Russia, such as Denis Pushilin, has been targeted by Ukrainians. And speaking about Donetsk region front lines, recently, allegedly, Dmitry Medvedev Yes, the same nuclear threat boy. He arrived to congratulate Russian soldiers. He awarded them, as always, medals and also shook their hands and said some encouraging words. But suspiciously enough, these Russian soldiers are wearing brand new uniforms with absolutely no signs of combat activities. So, to say the least, the presence of Dmitry Medvedev so close to front lines is rather questionable. But what do I know? But honestly, what do I know? Is that Wagner, according to Russian sources, is now back again in Ukraine. At this very moment there are no big formations of these private military companies spotted in Ukraine, but rather some small units, detachments and maximum companies. And reportedly, these are the Wagner soldiers who, in exchange for their safety, you already know how ridiculous it sounds, they decided to sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense of Russia, and now they're fighting alongside other Russian common soldiers. And the most recent location where Wagner soldiers were spotted were next to Klishchiivka, believe it or not. Unfortunately for them it was a little bit too late, but also it once again shows you that the Ministry of Defense of Russia acknowledges that Wagner soldiers are pretty good soldiers. That is why they decided to send them to the most complicated areas. Or maybe, once again, because they promised them safety, they send them to Klishchiivka, hoping that the Wagner soldiers will not make it through. And just overall, and this is a little bit concerning statistics, but according to the representative of Ukrainian forces, Ilya Yevlash, at this moment Russians concentrated and brought approximately 52,000 of their own soldiers to Bakhmut surrounding areas. He also claims that Russians brought at least 274 tanks, 150 artillery systems and at least 120 rocket launchers. And just in total, according to his own intelligence data, Russians have approximately 150,000 soldiers scattered across eastern front lines, and as you can see, 1/3 of them are concentrated in this small area next to Bakhmut. So as you can see, every single sign at this moment points that the escalation is inevitable, and most likely it will happen extremely soon, because Ukrainians just recently recaptured Andriivka and Klishchiivka, and most likely they'll continue their liberating counter-offensive, targeting forward into Bakhmut. For this reason, if you don't want to miss any of these crucial updates in the near future, just please consider subscribing to my channel. It only takes one click. Thank you so much, Patreons, for your support, and see you tomorrow.